Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. In this video we're going to wrap up conference. We just had the last session of conference, the Sunday afternoon session, and we'll start it off with your comments that you left between the last video and this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe to my channel, like this video if you like it, hit the notification bell, and leave more comments. We'll talk more about that later. So I'm going to start here with Kathy Price. According to President Nelson, it's soon to get a lot harder. We need to prepare ourselves spiritually by coming to Christ, and don't worry about the details of what's going on in the world. I agree with you. Yeah. I think there's a lot of contention right now, and again, like I've talked about in the last few videos, that seems to have been one of the main topics and one of the recurring themes in all the talks is that we need to become unified, put all the details and all that stuff to the side, and let's just focus on building Zion and coming to Christ, and not focus so much on our differences that we have with each other. Sam Lee said, I really enjoyed the part where the prophet compared the foundation of the Salt Lake Temple to our faith in Christ. I also got the impression that he is telling everyone to go to the temple and soon. Yeah, and in the session that we're about to go over right now, he just flat out asked us to do that, to go to the temple, he didn't, to go to the temple, make time to go to the temple. He's underlining the importance of going to the temple. Allison Bach says, interesting about what Davies means. In case you missed the last video, we were talking about that. You'll have to go back and watch that, but basically Davies is derived from the name David. Davies is Welsh in origin. I don't know about Davis, but I know Davies and Davis are basically, it's the same and they come from the name David. My English grandmother was a Davies. Boy, so much info to process from conference so far. Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot to dig into, especially as we get the footnotes and the Leahona. We're going to have a good time. Elder Uchtdorf, recommit to doing better by a personal restoration within us. Elder Renlin, saying the virus was our spiritual stress test. Yeah. It's definitely, if there's any contention within you, it's definitely going to bring it, or it has brought it to the surface. You can go on YouTube and watch, like, compilations of public freakout videos, which it is one of my guilty pleasures. I don't like contention, but like I like to watch it and just kind of, for my own information, just kind of like study people, study human behavior, and there is no end to the number of videos that have to do with wearing masks or getting vaccinated. And I mean, I don't have to tell you, but give me a second. But it's really seems to have like brought it out in everybody. So hopefully, if we haven't been doing so good with that so far, let's try to avoid contention. Let's try and understand each other. I don't think that either side is dumb for believing what they believe. I myself, I've decided to get the vaccine, and it was after praying about it. Again, like the first couple times I saw it popping up, like on President Nelson's Facebook, I kind of just like ignored it. But then when the first presidency flat out sent out an email asking everybody to do it, that's when I decided, okay, I think they really want us to do this. I'm going to pray. I received my answer, went ahead and did it. And I'm not going to judge anybody, whether they do or they don't. I think we all just need to pray. I will say it probably is wise to follow the prophet, but this is, it's personal. It may not be right for everybody necessarily. So if you get the answer no, then don't do it. Okay. Elder Cook, love God and forgive everyone. President Nelson, we need to do we need to do extraordinary measures to our foundation, and many more if I could read my notes better. This is fun. Many blessings to you and yours. Thank you, Allison. I'm glad this is fun. I'm having a good time too. I like reading you guys' comments. Donna Crimmins. I think one change was to speed up the process. I recently went to the temple, and at least half an hour was shaved off of the endowment. There's lots of work that needs to be done. I saw some of the speakers hitting on following the prophet and felt it was about the vaccine. There's been a lot of contention in the church, like a bunch of little children fighting. I think some people have been able to debate it in a mature way, because you can definitely talk about differences and treat each other with respect, and that's what we should do. We should talk about disagreements, just treat each other with dignity and respect. But yeah, that's actually a really interesting point about speeding up the process with the endowment, because I wonder, I would assume that would make room for more sessions, doing endowment sessions. When I lived in Utah, you were able just to go to the temple whenever. You didn't have to have an appointment. Unfortunately, when I was in Arizona, we didn't actually go. We did like a sealing session, or whatever you want to call it. We did sealings one time in the Mesa Temple, but I didn't actually do endowments there, so I don't know what it's like in Arizona. Wasn't able to go in Texas. The temples were pretty far, and it was really hard to find someone to watch our kids. But now we're starting to go back, and now I'm dealing with the Oklahoma City Temple, where you have to have an appointment, and it's not really that big of a deal, especially since you can just schedule it online, which is pretty convenient. But it just makes me wonder if by doing this, it makes it so that you can have more endowment sessions per day, even if it's just like one more. Because I assume what you're talking about, Donna, is maybe this has something to do with hastening the work so we can get more temple work done before the second coming. Because I brought up before how, for people that are waiting to be resurrected, that time's not going to come unless you've had all your work done. We know that the righteous are going to be resurrected first, and but you'll have to have all your ordinance work completed before you can be resurrected. So unfortunately, we're probably going to have a situation that once this does happen, once the resurrection actually starts, there's going to be people that are ready and good to go. And then, for the initial part of I guess all throughout the millennium, really, there's going to be people who have already accepted already accepted the gospel and done the necessary work in the spirit world, and then are just waiting on someone here in the our mortal living world, those that are living, to perform the work for them before they can be resurrected. So yeah, I find that very interesting. Thanks for that comment. And that wraps it up for the comments. Now I'm just going to go over some of mine. With this particular session, I didn't have as many notes. This one just felt more like a typical general conference sessions. Like, I don't know about, for you, but for me, that's how it felt. The ones before this, definitely there were lots of repeated themes, lots of key phrases and things that were being said. This one, not so much until kind of toward the end. So what I have here in my notes is I have Elder Garrett W. Gong, and he was talking about trust. And, he was obviously talking about it in a doctrinal sense, but I think also maybe reaching out to those people that still are not too sure about whether they can, follow the prophet's advice and get the vaccine. And I feel for those people. I was one of those people. but I have made my choice. And anyway, so I just brought that up, and it's not just the vaccine either. There's a lot of issues, a lot of things that people are disagreeing on in the church. A lot of it is political, and you know it. Like you think back to BYU and Elder Holland giving his talk there, that upset some people, and hopefully those people, the ones that are upset, if they're true members of the church, hopefully they can listen to this talk and know that they can trust the Lord and they can trust His servants and what they say, even though it goes against their personal feelings or their worldview. After that, I had L. Todd Budge of the presiding bishopric, and I just made a note here that he mentioned how the church has helped with giving out vaccinations or whatever, and I'd mentioned that one other time in another video, how the church has actively tried to get the vaccine out there, and yeah, so I really do think that they're trying to help people go ahead and do it. Because we don't know what's going to happen. I understand all the reasons not to get it. Everything from the science to the schemes of the modern day Gadianton robbers and the powers that be. I get it. It may just be that the prophet really can see ahead. I know that he can. And in regards to this, maybe it actually, despite the information that we have on our side, maybe he does know better, and maybe there is a good reason why we should get it. But again, that's on you to decide and to pray about. And then I didn't get his full name. I think his first name was Carlos. He is from the Philippines. He mentioned the term old debris in his talk, which I thought was neat because that was referring back to Russell M. Nelson's talk about removing old debris from our lives, when he was like comparing the renovation of the Salt Lake Temple, how they have to like remove old debris and they're replacing it with new material. So I thought that was pretty neat. Alvin F. Meredith III of the 70, he talked about how the adversary depends on the righteous to basically do nothing. And that's what he's hoping that we'll do, is that we'll just sit by, not fight back, not try to improve ourselves, and essentially be distracted. And this has been brought up multiple times during this conference, being distracted. He talked about how, there are worthwhile things to invest your time into, but that you can get too into it, right? Like, for example, sports. There's nothing wrong with watching sports. And participating in sports, even better, because it's good for your body to be fit. It's also good to learn, discipline and how to work together as a team. There's good things that'll come out of it, but that there's people out there that probably put unhealthy amounts of time toward watching sports and, reading all the sports news and just really being on top of it, knowing all the stats, knowing all the different players, doing fantasy football, fantasy basketball, whatever. And, depending on how much time we put into it, it may go against that, which is really important. The time that we could use improving ourselves spiritually, coming to know the Savior, studying the scriptures, which we need to do. Even just like in this time that I've started this YouTube channel, I feel like I've grown so much because I've basically been forced to research all these things so I can put together content and make these videos. And by doing so, I've just learned all these different things. I've answered questions that I had before, and now I know the answer. And, you know, it's just, I think about how much I've been learning and how many people are not doing that. Not necessarily doing a YouTube video, but just not researching, not feasting upon the words of Christ, and putting their time toward things that just ultimately are not going to matter after this life, whether it's hunting, fishing, video games, um, you know, for women and guys, shopping. Um, I don't know. There's so many different things. There's so many different things. Even work, your job. Um, a lot of people, there's people that are workaholics, and I'm assuming that a lot of them, maybe the motivation is to advance in their career. But I guess you have to stop and wonder, like, is it really worth it? Sacrificing so much time, sacrificing time with your family, sacrificing time that you could use doing spiritual things, researching, studying the scriptures. I think that there is probably some of that goes on. So anyway, and then he also used the term the whirlwinds that surround us. And someone before that had quoted the scripture that talked about the shafts in a whirlwind. I'm bringing that up because I've done a video about the term whirlwinds and how it's used in the scriptures. And, it may not be anything really. I'm just kind of guessing based on my own study. But I'll link that video below so you can check it out. But it seems like, whirlwinds are a bad thing for those that are wicked, but actually a good thing for those that are righteous. And in regards to the righteous, I think it has an implication of being quickened and being translated, because like when you think about Elijah, who's also been mentioned over and over and over and over and over again in this conference, he was taken up in a chariot of fire with a whirlwind. That's how he was translated. So, so I'll put that in the description below, and also my tornado videos in case you want to check those out, because tornadoes are whirlwinds, and there's been some interesting things going on with tornadoes along the Wasatch Front since 1999. So, all right, and then these last two talks were really good. We had Elder Neil L. Andersen, who last October spoke, and he referenced being quickened and being caught up and meeting the Lord in the cloud, which I thought was really interesting. There were some good footnotes with that. I did a video on that too. I'll put that video in the description below. So his talk was about using the church's correct name. The name of the church is not negotiable. Why is it happening now when all this time we've been using, Mormon.org and the Mormon Tabernacle Choir and, just all these things. And I've been wondering that, so I'm glad that he answered this question. He says, steps of the Savior's work are revealed in their appropriate time. So I'm taking from this that the prophet, or somebody, most likely the prophet, received revelation about this. So why? Well, I guess I still have questions about why now, but I think it has to do with the second coming. I think it has to do with the hinge point that President Nelson has talked about, that we've reached a hinge point in the church's history. And I think that this is part of it. Like, we are still doing missionary work, but I think that the time of the Gentiles is coming to a close. And, when you look at, for example, Moroni, you don't have any more Moronis that are being put on top of temples. I've done a video about that as well. There's less Moroni iconography. So, like, Mormon and Moroni are like starting to go away. And Moroni, when you look at Moroni, usually he's depicted as, the angel Moroni on top of the temple with like the trumpet. And you get the impression that that's like the declaring the gospel to all the world. And I think it probably was appropriate during that time for that to be one of the main symbols of our church. I don't think that was necessarily a mistake. I just think that now we're moving into a new phase or a new step, like Elder Andersen says here. He mentioned the Kirtland Temple, which I made a note of that here because the Kirtland Temple has been brought up a lot during this conference as well. I would have talked about it before now, but I didn't know, that it was going to become a pattern until just now. There's been a lot of talk about Elijah. He's been brought up many, many, many times. And the Kirtland Temple has also been mentioned a lot during this conference. And of course, the Kirtland Temple is where Elijah appeared to the prophet Joseph Smith, along with others. And then he showed the Second Coming picture. The traditional one, the classic one that the church uses, where it's Christ coming down with like the white robe and then the red sash, and then all the angels, with their trumpets, and then the desert underneath. I thought that was really good. Clearly, pointing to the Second Coming. And it's interesting because that exact same picture, when you go to last October's conference in the Liahona, for his talk, he uses that same exact picture. So I'm assuming that it's the speakers that choose these pictures. And so he seems like that's really on his mind. I'll just say it like that. And then something interesting that he said is that in the future, Christians not of our faith will welcome our role because we will not stop believing in Jesus Christ. So it's like he's saying that they foresee the demise of traditional Christianity. Protestants, Catholics for sure. Catholics has been going on. Well, it's been going on for a long time with all of them, and it's probably just going to increase. And so those who are true Christians that are maybe deceived and just don't know where to find the truth, since we're gonna be steadfast with this, we're going to be, I think, a source of strength to Christianity as a whole. As more and more people fall away from it. There's this kind of like initiative going on right now, and it's kind of being spearheaded by the Pope, where they're trying to almost like bring all, or at least the three Abrahamic religions together. And the way that the Pope's been talking a lot, he's like really been like de-emphasizing the importance of Christ and the importance of brotherhood and bringing everything together. And where is it at? I think it was in the United Arab Emirates. They have like their Abrahamic compound where they have these three large buildings that are like white cubes, and one's supposed to be like a Christian church, one is a mosque, and then the other one is a synagogue, and they're all in the same compound. And the idea is to bring the three faiths together. And there's people talking that it seems like what they're wanting to do is to somehow meld it all together and create like a one world religion. And that's kind of a scary thought because, religion, it's not something that's supposed to be created by man, right? We know that there are many religions and they are created by man, but like if you're in that religion, it's your belief that your beliefs are based on God and God revealing those truths to you. And so it's kind of disturbing if that's what they're trying to do and if people actually buy into it. And, right here, Elder Anderson saying that, okay, but we're not going to stop believing that Jesus Christ is the Messiah. And the church has been doing a lot of like interfaith cooperation, and just recently, Redland, no, Elder Rasband talked at the G20 Interfaith Forum, I think is what it's called. And the church has been doing that for a few years. So, like, we are working together with other faiths, but they're saying right here that we're not gonna give up our beliefs. And in fact, in 2020, that's when they put out the proclamation about the restoration of the church. So the church is taking a stand. It's like, okay, we can work with all you other faiths, but we're not going to become one part. We're not going to become part of like a one world religion. And it's been a gradual process. I don't know how long it's been going on for. Some would argue that the Vatican II Council was like a big step toward that, and with this Pope in particular, Pope Francis, he's making a lot of traditional Catholics very, very upset because he's getting rid of things like the traditional Latin Mass. And like I said, it's like he's kind of like de-emphasized the importance of Christ. He's seems like he's very focused on um, the mainstream political topics of today. That's like where his focus is. Uh, for the nativity scene last year, they had just a grotesque, bizarre, weird nativity scene that it had like an astronaut in it, but like an ancient astronaut. Like it looked like. Just look it up. If I remember, I'll put a link in the description below. But it's disturbing, and yeah, I think there's interesting things going on in the world of religion and in the Catholic Church. Um, and those really good Catholics that have principles that really do believe in their church, they're not happy about it at all. Um, let's see. He talked about the miracle about the domain names becoming available when President Nelson made the emphasis on using the correct name of the church. How the church was able to go ahead and purchase those, whereas before they had been just kind of locked up by somebody. Somebody owned them. Um, and then he said, "Follow the prophet, even if it goes against our initial thinking." And yeah, we don't need to repeat all that. We need to follow the prophet. Um, and then it's really neat that he was able to show an example where using the church's correct name has actually led to a baptism. And I'm sure that that's not the only time that it's happened, but clearly there's power in the church's name, and so we need to use it every opportunity that we can. Okay, and then on to President Nelson's talk. He emphasized how we should use our time, that we need to be careful with that. Again, just talking about distractions. He also talked about who to trust, and of course, we can trust the church, we can trust the prophet. He's not going to lead us astray. We can trust the scriptures, the general authorities. Let's see. Counter the lure of the world by making time for the Lord every day. Yeah, so let's not put so much time and effort into worldly things. Make the Lord a priority and make sure to reserve time for Him in your day, every day. He talked about how there's philosophies that are intriguing but not true. So we need to examine those things that maybe we're looking into that run counter to church doctrines and the gospel. And then he asked us to please make time for him, in his holy house, referring to the Lord. So we need to get to the temple. So I don't know about you, but I thought this was a pretty good conference. A lot of interesting things were said. Oh yeah, and then the temples. So he announced 13 new temples. Now, if you've been following the channel, then you know that he was only 3 temples behind President Hinckley in terms of total number of temples now announced during a presidency. And so now he has blown past that. President Hinckley was at 73 temples that he announced during his time, and it was mostly because of the idea and the creation of the small or the mini temples. So all of a sudden there was an explosion of temples. So President Hinckley, during his time, he announced 73 temples, and before this conference, excuse me, President Nelson had announced 70. The most recent one being the Ephraim, Utah temple before these ones. So now he's gone from 70 to 83 temples that he's announced. And the thing about President Hinckley is that his presidency ran for 12 years, whereas with President Nelson, we're only on like 3 years right now, a little over 3 years. So pretty incredible. And let me just read those off again in case you missed it or you forgot. We have one going in Taiwan, one in the Philippines, one in Liberia. Liberia is an African country. And then we have another one going into the Congo. So another African country. Madagascar. I was kind of shocked by that one. Just like, at least for me, I don't really think of Madagascar very often. And I wasn't aware that there was much church presence there. So that kind of took me by surprise. So got another one going into Africa. And then we got Mexico, Brazil, Bolivia. Another one going into Chile, the Santiago West. So I guess that means that there's 2 in Santiago. I'd have to check, but obviously because of the name, Santiago West. And then we got one going into Fort Worth, Texas. That's really cool because now in the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area, you're going to have 2, the Dallas Temple and then the Fort Worth Temple. So that's really neat. Cody, Wyoming. And then another one going into Rexburg. In Rexburg, that's where BYU Idaho is. So they had, I don't know when the first Rexburg temple was made. Let's see, I think that was around the time that I got home from my mission. So sometime around, like 2005, 2006 or something like that. That's when the first Rexburg temple was constructed. Could have been before that, I don't know. But just around that time. So it's kind of crazy that there's going to be another one there, the Rexburg North Temple. Heber Valley, Utah. And then reconstruction of the Provo, Utah Temple after the Orem, Utah Temple is dedicated. So does that mean... Let me look it up because, okay. Provo, Utah Temple. I think it still has that... In my opinion, hideous 60s and 70s architecture. I'm sure it looked amazing at the time. It looked just incredible. Yeah, I'm just looking it up, and yeah. So I'm thinking what they're going to do. I can only assume, based on what President Nelson said, that they're going to do the same thing that they did to the Ogden, Utah Temple, which they had like the same... architecture. Like it looks like a 60s wedding cake, basically. The 60s and 70s really were kind of a dark time, weren't they? I know that that's when, like, there was, like, a dark age of, like, Looney Tunes. Like, you had, like, the earlier Looney Tunes that were good, but then it went into this weird, bizarre kind of, like, phase where it clearly had, like, a 60s and 70s influence. All the Disney cartoons had, like, you had the Aristocats that... Sorry. If I'm offending anybody, I'm sorry. I'm sure that the 60s and 70s were a great time and a very precious time in your life. But boy, did they leave... boy, did they leave their mark on the world. And, but even the church realizes that has to be fixed with these temples. Okay, sorry. It's not that funny. All right, so that was conference. So we had some temples announced. We had a really heavy theme of the Second Coming running throughout the conference, as well as other things that were just repeated over and over again. Over time, I'll try and do my deep dives into the talks of interest, see if there's anything else that we can pull out of them. And yeah, I'll just leave it right there. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, hit the notification bell, leave your comments, and I'll talk to you next time.